Thor recreates his epic leap and the attack with the same weapon that he used against Thanos in Infinity War, and even this time smartly aims for the head. Stormbreaker was designed to be a god killer and did surpass the combined power of all 6 Infinity Stones. So for Doctor Doom to simply stop all of that power with just 2 armored fingers, it gives us a sense of the power scale compared to Thanos. Actually, speaking of Thanos, God Emperor Doom memorably does this to Thanos in Secret Wars number 8. In a 2025 Shanghai Disney Expo laser show depicted Doctor Doom doing the same thing to Thanos. So we might see it in this movie. If you're interested, like I am, in revisiting Thanos in Avengers Infinity War, New Rockstars is like 35 episodes deep in our Road to Doomsday weekly Marvel Rewatch podcast series. Specifically, this Saturday morning, we're going to be revisiting Avengers Infinity War. So be sure to watch that episode and all the past episodes, because trust me, we've been having some interesting conversations there. So Doom even blocking Thor's lightning like this might be recreating Billy Tan's artwork for Thor number 605 from 2009. In this storyline, Thor avenges his Asgardian people after Doom experimented on them in Liberia. And notice the rune on Doom's gauntlet. Doom rune! This is the same symbol that was on Doom's throne at the recent Billy World event in Shanghai this year, and the rune that was projected with green lasers at that Shanghai Disney Expo last year. And I think this is the deeper magic that Doom knows that overpowers all types of science and magic from our heroes. And notice how each corner of that rune has 2 antlers or pincers. Doesn't that look like Loki's crown? I think this is a clue that Doom either has or can absorb God of Stories Loki's powers over reality warping. This is the clearest shot of the Doctor Doom mask and Robert Downey Jr. underneath it. You can see his clear green eyes glaring angrily at Thor. And then the trailer ends with this moment. Steve Rogers is Casual Friday. Yes, recreating the most iconic moment from Avengers Endgame. This is a cracked/broken Mjolnir that was reassembled after Hela's destruction in Ragnarok by Jane Foster in Thor Love and Thunder. If you look closely, you can see Johnny Storm standing behind Steve. Looks like this is on the Fantastic Four ship. How did Steve get back with Thor here? Well, when Steve chose to stay behind with Peggy Carter in the late 40s at the end of Avengers Endgame, that decision, according to the Russo brothers when Endgame came out, caused a branch timeline to form. Steve lived his new life with Peggy Carter in a branch history that we never saw. I've read and listened to literally every interview given by the Russo brothers for the past 10 years, and I can confirm that they use the terms timeline and universe and reality interchangeably. In their logic, Steve staying with Peggy caused a new universe to form. And the theory I discussed in this video is that Steve's decision caused the creation of what we would later call the 828 universe, the universe of the Fantastic Four. I like the idea that Steve being around to help S.H.I.E.L.D. defeat Hydra in the late 40s and 50s and warn world powers against developing hydrogen bombs would have led to the peaceful 60s that the Fantastic Four inherited and enabled world peace via the Future Foundation. This could be a universe where Robert Downey Jr., instead of playing the hero Tony Stark in the 21st century, ended up just being born as a Latvian named Dr. Doom. Now, before you say, wait, wouldn't there only be history from 1949 onwards? No, I think in a new universe it kind of retcons a completed history that led up to that. The arguments against this theory are that if the 828 universe formed by branching off of the 616 from the year 1949, both universes should have the same history of World War II and before, right? And if Dr. Doom comes from the 828 universe, he couldn't also be a Tony Stark variant, because in the 616 MCU, Tony Stark was born to Howard Stark in the year 1970. To that I would say, we don't yet know how this Dr. Doom really came about. We also don't know what logic the Russos are going to say branch timelines and universes follow when it comes to filling out the past history of a parallel universe. The nature of Steve's choice to stay behind could have just resulted in some magical cosmic side effects, where the anchor being Soul that found its body in Tony Stark in the 616 universe just found its body in someone named Victor Von Doom in this newly formed 828 history. But if Steve had been living in the 828 universe since Endgame, it's not too hard to trace the timeline through the early 60s.
My name is John Pagan. Dad overdosed about 8 times. This is a disease. It's real. It's cunning, baffling, and powerful. Treatment gave me back my health, my family, my future.
Where that could have been him with his slightly older son watching that Fantastic Four cartoon show in that montage sequence in the Fantastic Four First Steps film to the year 1969 to 1970 in this branch timeline when the Fantastic Four's big scene takes place. The point where he looks somewhat older and joins Thor and the Fantastic Four on their way back to the 616 Earth. At CinemaCon, the press release stated that actor Wesley Holloway was also in the cast. And I think he might be playing Steve's son after this time has passed. Someone I think could be named James or Jimmy after James Buchanan Barnes. Either way, we know that Steve will have to end his journey sometime after the events as a very old man handing the shield back to Sam Wilson. That'll be a crazy time loop because Sam in this movie will have a memory of older Steve that Steve in this movie hasn't experienced yet. Either way, when Thor says it's impossible as he looks at Steve, I don't think he's talking about Steve being alive again, because Thor at this point would have experienced crazy enough time travel and multiversal hopping. But I do think he's reacting to Steve telling him that their fallen friend of Tony Stark is a variant by another name. Also, it's possible that Thor is reacting to the face of Tony Stark right here on the ship with them, when Victor might be coming to them as a friend, offering to help with these incursions. Like, maybe removed from all these earlier shots of the Marvel heroes and Avengers meeting with each other, there is like a variant of Tony Stark who's pretending like he's their friend when he's gonna stab them in the back very soon. Or maybe when Thor fights the masked Doctor Doom, at first he doesn't connect who it is until he looks into his eyes. Despite seeing the other shot of Loki in this trailer, I think that we're gonna see Thor and Steve, and maybe even Robert Downey Jr.'s seemingly heroic friend, head to the TVA with Sentry, and that's when Doctor Doom is gonna switch sides and use Sentry as his conduit to channel Loki, God of Story's power, to absorb it and give himself the power to manipulate reality. So Chris Evans and Catherine Newton are just two MCU hero names that were not initially confirmed by Marvel in 2025 to be in the cast. So if they're coming back, you know other surprise heroes will as well. On Easter, Robert Downey Jr. posted this Easter egg art that included the sigils of Doctor Strange and Spider-Man. The released CinemaCon trailer now here on Monday shows that they're going to have even bigger reveals this Saturday at CinemaCon. That could be other cast members that they haven't confirmed yet. New Rockstars is going to be covering everything at CinemaCon, specifically with a live stream covering Marvel Studios Hall H panel on Saturday afternoon. We're going to start live streaming at 4 p.m. Pacific time, but we're also going to have live streams on Thursday and Friday as well. So subscribe to New Rockstars, join us for those live streams. Jessica and I will be there in San Diego reporting live on the scene while the rest of the team anchors the desk back here at New Rockstars HQ. I'm going to be talking about this trailer a lot in the days ahead. Comment down below with your thoughts on
This is all to Easter eggs, references, and little things you might have missed in the first full actual trailer for Avengers Doomsday. Welcome to Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy, and I can't believe I finally got to say those words. We are going to break down every detail of this trailer, lay out predictions for what this means for the film, and how this is going to affect Avengers Secret Wars. Guys, there are some details in this trailer that make me really sad because not everybody is going to make it out alive. Now, if you guys remember, the past few years have been one hell of a rocky road to lead up to this trailer. The MCU's multiverse saga was originally going to feature Kang the Conqueror as its main villain, or maybe it was a multiversal war between many variants of Kang. We'll never know. But then, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania underperformed and Jonathan Majors was arrested. So Disney pulled a quick, and then they cast Robert Downey Jr. as the greatest Marvel villain of all time, Victor Von Doom. Then, Avengers Endgame directors, the Russo brothers, and Endgame co-writer Stephen McFeely are now directing and writing Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. So at this point, we still don't know if Doctor Doom just looks like Tony Stark because he's a variant of Tony who grew bad, or if they happen to be two people who have the same face. You know, like Steve Rogers and the Human Torch. Avengers! Sorry, what? But what we do know from this trailer is the multiverse is going to be threatened by incursions. As we saw in the show Loki, the multiverse is now this ever-expanding collection of infinite realities, but when two realities collide, it can destroy one or both universes. The only way to save your reality is to destroy another, and we see the multiverse start to fray in this trailer. Now, the real challenge of this movie is going to be bringing the multiverse saga together. After Avengers Endgame united basically every Marvel character in one fight, we haven't had a single Avengers movie, and there have been very few team-ups, and characters like Shang-Chi haven't even been seen for 5 years. However, this movie finally gives us the reason the multiverse saga was created. We are going to see the classic X-Men go up against the heroes from the MCU, and all that's finally laid out here. And just a reminder, we've actually already seen 4 trailers for this movie, or maybe not trailers, tone poems or whatever, and this trailer actually gives some context to those previous micro-teasers we saw at the start of the year. For instance, we saw Steve Rogers living happily with his infant son, saw Thor in the woods praying to Odin for the safety of his daughter, and then Magneto narrated to Xavier about death, and finally, Shuri met the Fantastic Four in a desert while Namor is nearby. We're going to revisit each of these trailers as we go along because this teaser actually gives us some context as to what the hell is happening in those previous trailers. Now, let's break this baby down. We begin at the X-Mansion from the original Fox X-Men movies. Now, Blade was technically the first modern Marvel movie released in 1998, but 2000's X-Men is the film that really kicked off this Marvel age of movies. Kevin Feige got his start on that film as an associate producer, and I think he wants to give all of these characters a proper send-off. The X-Mansion is faithfully reproduced from the Fox X-Men franchise, right down to this sign for Xavier's School for the Gifted. And then we see Patrick Stewart returning for his 8th appearance as Charles Xavier. Now, the flash of light outside is probably the beginning of an incursion. Now, we saw the end result of an incursion in Multiverse of Madness, as Sinister Strange's reality was slowly being eaten eaten by black goo. Here, this is the X-Men universe colliding with another reality. It could be colliding with the MCU, or the Fantastic Four's universe, or maybe even a franchise that hasn't been announced yet, like the realities of another Spider-Man. Now, we have theorized in past videos that the X-Men universe is actually the original universe, and every other reality branches off from them. After all, as we've documented, the X-Men have done a lot of screwing around with the timeline, which causes branches in reality. Now, I, for one, would love to see a little bit of the Raimi-verse in this film, but Spider-Man, Tom Holland, hasn't even been confirmed for this movie yet. He's too busy fighting like a million villains in his own film. But of course, Spider-Man's greatest villain of all time is actor term. No, actually, it's the media, or more to the point, media bias. JJ. J. Jonah Jameson has a field day blaming Spider-Man for, well, everything. But here's the thing. This used to be a gag in these movies, but now it's starting to hit really close to home. We do live in an age of media misinformation and bias. So it's important to have news that you can really trust. And that is why we partnered with Straight Arrow to bring you this video. Straight Arrow helps you to see through the biased media to give you an objective view of what's actually happening in the world. Just look at the media landscape tool. It tells you who reported on a story, where they lean politically, and who owns that news source. So now you can kickstart your morning with this fact-driven news. See, guys, the bias bubble is killing us. Mainstream media's only goal is to keep us engaged and feeding the algorithm with our anxiety. Instead, use Straight Arrow News' media miss section. It cuts through the algorithm to give you an incredible resource that shows you the stories you are missing. And then you can get the trustworthy, in-depth news that you actually need to know. So stop being manipulated by media bias.
Straight for laughter! Clifford, sir! Sailor, and listen to me. I'll sing you a song on the fish in the sea. That's when we will storm, we're all together with blowing west, Johnny Star, boys, there he goes. Jumps the hay with a slippery tail. Climbs up the log and 3 feet up sailing. Straight for laughter! Jumps the shark with his eyes on me. You eat the doughboys and I eat the meat. We're all together.
Straight Arrow offers journalism that you, a variant of Tony. There's a few things to note here. He has a European accent, which tells me this is likely not a variant of Tony Stark. He is the real Victor Von Doom.
But what does that mean anyways?
Well, Victor Von Doom is my favorite villain in any comic. He was raised in the Eastern European country of Latveria, where a local baron persecuted his people. His mother sold her soul to the devil so her son would become a great man. And then Doom grew to be a brilliant wizard and scientist.
I'm something of a scientist myself.
After a dimensional portal scarred his face, he returned home to Latveria, conquered the nation, and became the villain, Dr. Doom. But what makes Doom so cool is that he genuinely believes that he is the best option for the world's survival. In the 2015 Secret Wars, which is the story this movie is going to be based on, he compressed the multiverse into a single world and rules it as a utopia where everyone is brainwashed into worshiping him. I always wanted to see Doom done right on screen, and so far, Downey looks perfect in the role. He says... So
Gotta stay hydrated.
My moves depend on it. Liquid IV and Spider-Man, brand new day.
So here he is setting up this idea of incursions. He talks about unthinkable decisions, meaning that they will have to sacrifice entire realities or even the multiverse itself in order to preserve some sort of life. That is the unthinkable decision he's referring to. Then we see Doom on a battlefield in a destroyed forest, and you would never know this is Robert Downey Jr. because he doesn't remove his mask. Now in the comics, they held off revealing Doom's face for years until this recent Secret Wars comic. Some people even theorized that his scar was really small, but his vanity meant that he had to hide his face from the public. In Secret Wars, after Doom obtains godhood, he immediately fixes his face. Now, Doom could be from any reality, but we did see him in the post-credits scene of Fantastic Four First Steps, which is confirmed to be seen from this film. Now, because that film also featured a Latvian delegation where Doom was absent, this could mean that Doom is from the Fantastic Four's reality, which is numbered 828. If that's the case, maybe he doesn't start off the movie all scarred. Maybe this scene is the aftermath of the accident that destroyed his face and set him on the villain's path. Hell, maybe in his reality, Tony Stark was European and he actually is a variant of Tony. And then, oh baby, we finally see Doom in his full armored glory. Well, let's just...
Press it?
Nope. I need a minute. Okay. Then the narration shifts to Thor. Now, we do see shots of Doom in the woods fighting Thor later in the trailer, and this is probably the battle that occurs after Thor prays to Odin, which we saw in the second teaser. We have theorized in past videos that Doom is trying to steal Thor's adopted daughter, Love, because her power is tied to eternity, a being who is the embodiment of the universe.
Boy, you missed one movie in this franchise and you don't understand anything at all.
Well, Thor Love and Thunder disappointed some fans, me included, because it was overly comedic in tone. Like, Thor fed his hammer a beer.
Sorry, we've been fighting lately.
But this movie seems to be returning Thor to his darker, more serious roots. And he's scared. I mean, this guy is the most powerful Avenger. He has fought in thousands of battles, and now something has managed to frighten him. Is he talking about an incursion, or is this after his face-off with Dr. Doom? He says,
Everything that they sacrificed me for nothing is not stuck together.
Then we see the fully renovated Avengers Tower. Now remember, this takes place 6 months after the events of the Thunderbolts when the new Avengers formed. And this surprised me. We actually see Thor arriving in a ship with the Fantastic Four. Now, judging by the ship's design, this ship is from their universe. We saw a Fantastic Four rocket enter the atmosphere in the Thunderbolts post-credits scene. So does this mean that Thor was, for some reason, in Universe 828? Maybe the battle with Doom in the forest actually occurred in their reality and not in ours.
Why do you say that?
Well, because we know Latveria exists in the Fantastic Four universe. We know that from this placard at the Future Foundation. So I think Doom already exists in Universe 828. He's from that universe. He has an existing rivalry with Reed Richards. He is the archenemy of the Fantastic Four, and that is why he showed up in the post-credits scene of First Steps. They are being greeted by Sam and Bucky, the two men who are in contentions for the Avengers title, like we heard about in the Thunderbolts post-credits scene.
You know he's filed for copyright of the name?
Did he? And also, Scott Lang. Now remember, Quantumania ended with him being afraid of the looming multiversal threat.
We did beat him, right?
Now, of course, he was scared of Kang the Conqueror, but now that Kang has been written out of this movie, I'm sure they'll find some way for him to say, hey, everybody, guess what? There are really bad things out there in the multiverse, similar to how he showed up and began the plot in Avengers Endgame. Now, again, we don't know much about this movie, but it's a given that the characters from different universes will probably start off fighting each other. That always happens when heroes first meet because it gives us a chance to gauge their power sets against each other, and it also gives the heroes an obstacle to overcome. We see MCU heroes fighting the X-Men later in the trailer, and Alan Cumming also said that he fought Pedro Pascal's Mr. Fantastic, so all these guys are going to be bashing heads. So maybe that's who Thor is trying to appealing to. These two groups of heroes we see.
We're sailing straight for Adler! Cliff ahead, sir! Very down on line, sir! Silence, straight for the answer!
Brand new wine origins. Faster than ever.
It's when heroes first meet because it gives us a chance to gauge their power sets against each other, and it also gives the heroes an obstacle to overcome. We see MCU heroes fighting the X-Men later in the trailer, and Alan Cumming also said that he fought Pedro Pascal's Mr. Fantastic, so all of these guys are going to be bashing heads. So maybe that's who Thor is trying to appeal to. These two groups of heroes we see at the end of the trailer who need to put aside their differences and work together. And then we get to the action part of the trailer with absolutely kick-ass crossover moments that we have been waiting for. First, we see the new Avengers Tower with a redesign. Tony Stark sold the tower in Spider-Man Homecoming, and for years we speculated on who could have bought it, until the movie The Thunderbolts revealed that it was purchased by CIA Director Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. She was building her own private superhero and then accidentally brought together the new Avengers team at the end of the movie The Thunderbolts. In the post-credit scene for that movie, we heard that Sam Wilson also formed an Avengers team, and then these two squads were arguing over who got to keep the name. Notice in the background of this wide shot, we see three globes connected by lines. These are most likely the three universes that are about to collide in an incursion. We have the Fantastic Four's 828, the 616 universe, and the X-Men universe. And here we see Bob, John Walker, Red Guardian with his silly Avengers with the Z jumpsuit, Elena, Bucky, Ghost, Reed, Sue, Johnny, Ben, Scott, Sam, and Thor. And then we see Namor on his throne speaking with Shuri. Now remember, Wakanda Forever ended with Wakanda and Talokan reaching a peace, but Namor was planning on one day using this alliance to join with Wakanda against the outside world. So now it looks like Shuri is here to appeal for his help, but he doesn't seem interested. In fact, notice the throne room doesn't even look like it's underwater. We'll have more on that in a bit. And we also see M'Baku and the Wakandans about to come to blows with Namor's soldiers. So Thor lands on a battlefield next to a broken statue, which might have been a statue of Doom. This is him gearing up for the big fight at the end of the trailer. And also notice the ground is littered with robot parts. I think these could be Doom bots. Maybe the forest where Thor was praying was actually in Latveria. Doom could have kidnapped his daughter Love, and now Thor has come to collect her. But first he had to fight through an army of Doom bots. Now this has an added effect, where in the comics a lot of the time you don't know if the Fantastic Four are fighting the real Doom or one of his robots. So if we see Thor is able to decimate all of these robots, but then Doom can beat him at the end of the trailer, that means that the real Doom is a badass. We see Stormbreaker charge up with Doom in the background, followed by an attack on the X-Mansion, and then, oh baby, comic accurate 90s Cyclops. Look, Cyclops is my favorite X-Man, and I've always thought he was underused and done dirty by the movies, so I'm so excited to finally see him get a chance to shine in this film, wearing, I might add, yellow spandex.
What'd you expect? Black leather?
And now, this is what we came here for, Shang-Chi versus Channing Tatum's Gambit. So guys, for one thing, I thought a Shang-Chi sequel should have been fast-tracked years ago. The guy could have been one of the leaders of the new Avengers team in the face of the franchise. And for years, I followed the news of how Channing Tatum was trying like hell to get a Gambit movie made. It got stuck in development hell, and then Fox tried to get the character off the ground with Taylor Kitsch in X-Men Origins Wolverine. See, like Gambit, Channing Tatum's family is from New Orleans, so he feels a personal connection to the character. Here, he looks completely serious after Deadpool and Wolverine treated him as a bit of a joke.
They call me the Gambit.
Do they?
Are you sure you didn't just really want them to, but it never quite worked out?
And I should remind you guys that we have this shirt for sale at our merch store, I'm about to make a name for myself. This is in addition to other Marvel parody merch like Tony giving life to Ultron, Latveria's Doomsday Festival, the X-Men and Nighthawk's Diner, and many, many more. If you become a store member at our $5 tier, you also get 15% off store-wide. Links are below. Then we see them fighting in the X-Mansion, making me wonder if they are attacking this reality to preserve their own classic incursion trolley problem, or are they trying to recruit the X-Men to fight against Doom? The whole movie is going to be one big trolley problem where the heroes are forced to make these kind of impossible decisions. And guys, this is massive. Loki is holding the TVA ID, which now features the multiversal tree on the back.
Wait, what's that mean?
So, in the show Loki, the version of him that stole the Tesseract was arrested by time cops and taken to a place outside of time called the Time Variance Authority. Over the course of 12 episodes, he sacrifices his own freedom to oversee the multiversal tree so everybody in infinite realities can have free will. But now, infinite realities means infinite chances for destruction. The last time we saw him, he was sitting at the center of the tree, but now he is in a normal house with curtains that kind of looks like Steve and Peggy's home where we saw Steve holding baby James. So maybe Loki has come here to warn Steve about Doom and to ask for his help. And this part blows me away. It was hard to imagine this visual just from the footage descriptions we heard after CinemaCon. Namor uses his powers to part the ocean floor. Now immediately, this calls to mind the image of Moses doing the same thing in the film The Ten Commandments.
And also in the Bible.
Yes, exactly. But this is actually an apt comparison because Namor is a Moses figure to his people. In the movie Wakanda Forever, we see his origin. He's 500 years old. He was born with the ability to fly, super strength, and to live in water or on land. But then, like Moses, he freed his people from slavery and led them to a promised land, an undersea kingdom. Now, we know from the previous trailer that the Wakandans will meet the Fantastic Four in a desert just like this. And I'm curious if this means that Namor is going to meet Sue Storm. In the comics, he was really hot for her, but he was always the bad boy love interest for Sue, and she chose to remain with Reed. And then we see them meeting with Ben, Sue, Bucky, Joaquin Torres, aka the Falcon, and Ghost, showing the two Avengers teams have put aside their differences, which makes sense because remember at the end of Brave New World, Sam heard from the leader about a big group, a threat called the Others.
We'll see what happens when you have to protect this place. The others.
So when people show up and start talking about this multiversal threat, I think Sam is going to be automatically ready to listen. Now, to me, it looks like Namor was already meeting with the Wakandans, and maybe he was the one who parted the water so the Avengers and the Fantastic Four would have a place to land. Inside the X-Mansion, we see Reed using his stretchy arm to hold Sam back so Yelena can duck underneath. By the way, notice the robot Herbie here. And then we see Yelena Belova, Natasha's adopted sister, facing off against Mystique. Now, in the movie Black Widow, we saw how Yelena reconnected with her sister after she spent years being brainwashed by the Black Widow program. Then, in the show Hawkeye, and the movie The Thunderbolts, Yelena slowly overcame her depression and created newfound families for herself. Now, Mystique is once again played by Rebecca Romijn, just like in the original X-Men franchise. Now, in those movies, she was essentially nude with rubber pieces glued to her body, but now she's been given a comic-accurate costume. This is followed by shots of Eric and Charles from the trailer scene that we saw a few months ago, where they look incredibly morose, almost like they've had to make a very tough decision about ending another reality or accepting that their own reality will die. And this is followed by Scott apparently saying goodbye to Cassie, who now has comic-accurate blonde hair. I'm betting that if the multiverse ends at the end of the film, somehow Cassie and the Avengers are going to survive.